In grading your papers on bureaucracy, I became a little bit unsettled, thinking that maybe we had not taught the exact nature of bureaucracy and the problems it can lead to. So I decided to try to make this audio and try to send it to you. I hope I get it to you. If not, I will work out something else so you can have it. A bureaucracy is a formal organization, an organization usually within a government. It exists to get a certain job done, and it does it in a very certain way. Max Weber, whom we studied earlier, was not very positive about bureaucracies, but through studying them and criticizing bureaucracies, he developed the concept of an ideal type. By that, he meant when we're looking at an organization or any other factor, we can figure out what it would be if it were exactly right, and that's the ideal type. And then we can judge the expressions of that organization or activity by how closely it comes to the ideal type. Now, Weber recognized these characteristics of a bureaucracy if it were seen as an ideal type. For one thing, number one, a bureaucracy has a division of labor. Each person does a certain thing within the group. He or she may not know how to do the other jobs, very likely does not. In fact, some people think that bureaucracies train people to what's called train incapacity. That is, we train people for one job and not for any other job within the organization. This situation of being trained for just one job sometimes leads to a feeling of alienation where a person feels not too much part of the overall group. Another characteristic of the bureaucracy is a hierarchy of authority. It's a very closely organized group, each person having authority over one part and someone having authority over all of it. And you can see this in the Roman Catholic Church, where you have the Pope and the cardinals and the bishops and on down to the local priest. A third characteristic of a bureaucracy is written rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations are important. No matter how much sense it might make to deviate, we cannot go away from the rules no matter what happens. We sometimes use, or at least Robert Merton, the sociologist, used the term goal displacement to refer to the conformity to official regulations, even when that may not be the best plan. The fourth characteristic of a bureaucracy is impersonality. Uh, Max Weber wrote that a bureaucracy carries out its work sine ira et studio, which is Latin for without hatred or passion. The idea is that bureaucracy is impersonal. Doesn't look on the people or what is causing for the people. It just obeys the rules. And then the fifth characteristic, the bureaucracy bases employment on technical qualifications. When a person has been there a certain number of years and done a certain number of things, they will be promoted. Sometimes this leads to what is known as the Peter principle, and that is that oftentimes people will be promoted to the level of their incapacity or incompetence. They do one job well, they are promoted to another. Saw this in relation to my high school teacher. He was an excellent chemistry teacher, did a superb job, and was promoted to principal where he was totally out of place. He was not a good principal. This is the Peter principle, and we see it all too often. A bureaucracy has its place. It gets a lot of jobs done, but it doesn't always get it done in the very best way. Sometimes bureaucracies lead to oligarchy, which is the rule by a few. A German sociologist by the name of Michaels originated the idea of the iron law of oligarchy, which he says in a bureaucracy, the tendency is to go from a bureaucracy that's made for service to a control and something that it obligates people to carry out what the bureaucracy is trying to do. Bureaucracies get jobs done, but sometimes not too well. Let me give you a personal experience that may help to cement the ideas of a bureaucracy. Several years ago, my wife and I decided to move out of our very nice 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom house and move into senior citizens' quarters. The reason for it was I wanted to make a study of the different kinds of dwellings for senior citizens and do a small book entitled Here Are the Different Ways That You May Live, the different possibilities you have, and see if it would contribute to senior citizens as they were making decisions. Worked pretty well. We rented our house to some other people, moved into an upscale senior citizens residence that we enjoyed very much. It got too expensive, and besides, we had learned that, so we moved into a RV. We lived in it for over a year in a place where there were other senior citizens living in an RV park. And then we moved from that into a place called St. Francis Village, which is a whole area for senior citizens, 800 units all for senior citizens. It was developed by the Catholic Laymen's Organization and was a delightful place to live. But when I went to pay the taxes on our house one year, I found they had jumped astronomically. And when I asked why, they looked at it and said, well, all of your deductions have been taken away. I went to the county tax office, the assessor and collector of taxes, and asked about it. And they pointed out that the rule is that you have to be living in a house to get the deductions on those taxes. And we were not living here. They had found that out by sending letters that were returned because they were not delivered to us. And they were going to take all of the deductions away from us. I told them why we had moved, and they, oh, that's an excellent idea. It would be such a great help. We're glad you're doing that, but the rule is you have to be there. Well, this was April, and I said, well, okay, we will move back into our house. That will not do any good this year. The law is you have to be there in January to get credit for it. If you move back in next January, you can ask and we can give you back the deductions. They also had the house highly valued, more than it was worth. I refinanced it and got an assessment on it, which was $20,000 less than what they had it rated at. And when I went to talk to them about that, the person said, well, yes, that'll have to be lowered since you have a legal assessment. But the person that takes care of that is not me. That's another person. They're not here today. You'll have to come back when they are here. I saw a whole lot of the characteristics of a bureaucracy: hierarchy, trained incapacity. Each person had a job that they could do only that job and not the others. Live by the law, no matter how much good is being done in something other than the rule. And we're come to a place where the few people in the bureaucracy can pretty well govern what's going to happen. Uh, I thought maybe bureaucracy had slipped a little bit in our study, so I wanted to, in some way, perhaps give a little bit more insight and have tried to do it in this way.